They were out early one morning, panning in the stream for gold, surrounded by the rising mountains. Old prospector with a tale for two, he brushed around in the pan, and pointing out what lay within was ordinary sand. He began with a story about 20 years before, and a younger man who sought his fortune. With a tear or two he told of searching for his treasure, but making known the gold he sought was ordinary pleasure. There were years of doing without, and there were years of plenty. I started thinking that life was never steady, excepting when the bills came in and I had no money to pay. Whiskey had never tasted better ordinarily. He concluded his story as it filled the air with a laugh, saying how he found the Lord and Savior, and how he found the river of life by which his day unfolds, and pointing out what stands within is not ordinary gold, and pointing out what stands within is not ordinary gold. Trust in God, believe upon His promises. Through His word we can see His wonders, signs and miracles of His love. We can return His love with devotion, standing on His word before all men. We are His beloved and His chosen, walking in this life renewed with peace. Trust in God, believe upon His promises. see his wonders, signs and miracles of his love. We can return his love with devotion, standing on his word before all men. We are his beloved and his chosen, walking in this life renewed with peace. Trust in God, believe upon his promises. Trust in God, believe upon his promises. Believe upon his promises.
North Studio. Today the topic is double cross. I was at a stoplight. Waiting for the light to change, and something caught my eye. It seemed a teeny tiny little bit out of place in Colorado Springs. There was a bearded guy standing under a street sign in a toga carrying a huge cross, pushing the traffic button, waiting to cross the busy intersection. He was acting totally normal, like, I'm just waiting for the light with a huge cross on my shoulder, wearing my slimming white toga. And he pressed the button again, and I heard him say under his breath, "Come on, light, come on." Well, he acted like it was just another day in the Springs. Well, I smiled, wondering if Simon of Cyrene, the man who carried Jesus' cross, had to deal with any traffic in northwest Jerusalem on the day that Jesus was led out to be crucified. I wasn't sure. Well, the light finally changed, and the man sped walked with his oversized cross like he was in New York City rush hour. And I forgot to tell you, he had white sneakers on too. Well, he commenced to drag that huge cross so quickly and smoothly across the street that I had to take a second look. And I noticed that he had wheels bolted to the bottom of that cross. His huge cross had training wheels. Well, I smiled again. It was, somehow I felt cheated, punked, double-crossed. Well, the term double-cross could mean to go back on a promise, or it could simply mean two crosses. Well, today we're going to discuss the two crosses of Christ, hence double-cross. Now, I guess I sort of double-crossed you with that title. Well, some of you are way ahead of me, and you're thinking, come on, Mark, you know better than that. You know the Romans crucified people on wooden posts and not traditional T-shaped crosses. Geez, Mark. You also know that the word cross is translated from the Greek word stauros, which also always means a single upright post or a wooden pole. Come on, dude. The traditional T-shaped cross was not even invented till after the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, 300 years after the resurrection of Christ. Get with it, Mark. Well, I hear you. I hear you all. My brain still may have training wheels, but little did you know that the word crosses is in quotes in my notes. And one thing I want to know is that maybe I'm going to teach you something that maybe not even all you biblical scholars out there will even have thought of. So this is going to be sort of a fun teaching. But what I am going to show you is that one cross or post is made of wood and the other cross is made of heart. One cross is all about death, the other cross is all about life. Both crosses are about the choices that we carry through life. The only thing that might make the Roman crucifixion post look like a cross was the large rectangular wooden sign that was nailed above the head of every crucified person. Now, they would have been used to seeing that. but it wasn't like the typical cross like we're used to seeing. See, the Romans were very kind in their cruelty. You see, they didn't make people wonder what the condemned person had done to deserve such punishment. They wrote it on a sign and they nailed it above their head. This man is a murderer. This man's a thief. This man started an insurrection. This man is a maker of mischief. This man is a runaway slave. Now, wouldn't you love that today? When you see a car crash rolled over on a sunny day on a straight road and you're wondering, what happened? But a sign would come up and it would say, this kid was texting while driving. Then you'd know, right? Or this lady was drinking and driving. Then you would know. You see, but we don't see that typically. Couldn't you see an Israeli's mom grabbing her son's ears and pointing up at the sign above some poor slob's head and scolding, that's what's going to happen to you if you keep stealing cookies? Can you imagine teenagers flipping it around and saying to each other, if your life could be boiled down into one sentence, what would it say? And they might talk about what they have in their brains. You see, this kid, they might say this kid has training wheels for a brain. Or they might say this kid is everyone's friend. This kid is rough, but he would help anyone. This young lady has an untarnished halo. This kid is going to change the world someday. See, speaking of runaway slaves, did you know that at that time in Italy, that 1 out of every 3 people in Italy were slaves? That's 1/3 of the population. You ever heard of a man named Spartacus? He was a man who was captured. He was forced into serving in the Roman legions, became a gladiator, was sold into slavery, ran away from his owner, and then he united thousands of other slaves in Italy to rebel against Imperial Rome. Well, the Roman judicial system stated that anyone who double-crossed Rome were worthless humans, and they had forfeited their life to live, their right to live. Now, the Roman legions, they outmaneuvered this Spartacus slave army, and they killed several thousand of them. Then they hunted down and crucified the rest. In 71 BC, the 6,000 remaining double-crossing slaves were crucified along the 120-mile or 200-kilometer road called the Via Appia, or the Appian Way. So can you imagine that? 120 miles of 6,000 slaves crucified, all with this little sign above their head. That's a lot of crucifixions. The Romans did similar, but in smaller mass crucifixions in Israel along very public roads. Crucifixion was a perfect mix of terror and torture. It was torture for the condemned, and it was terror for the people who passed by and read that sign. Gosh, you wouldn't want to make any mistakes. Anyone could be one accusation away from a similar fate. In Russia, there was a guy, I don't remember his name, but he said, you bring me the man and I'll show you the crime. Because they were guilty before proven innocent, whereas it's the opposite of our legal system. So in Rome, you were considered guilty before you were considered innocent. Now, a crucified person, just so you know, they would never crucify a Roman citizen because it was too disgraceful. They would only crucify a lesser human being, which is anybody who was not Roman. Okay? So Jesus would have been considered that type of person, especially when they thought he was committing a capital crime. See, now they typically nailed a sign, a plaque, a large reusable tablet above the head of every condemned person, explaining why they were hanging there. And that sign had one simple sentence that described what had become of that person's life. Those words were the boiled down essence of that person's life. So if you just gotta have a traditional T-shaped cross, you can still have one, sort of, minus the training wheels. See, the words written on the sign above their head was their cross to bear. My title of Double Cross is a play on words. It's a double entendre of sorts. My friend Dave reminded me that those of you who have been taught that there were 4 others crucified with Jesus can say that the number of crosses were doubled from what is commonly taught. He's right. You see, there are 2 crosses mentioned in the Gospels, hence the term double cross. One was wooden, representing death. The other represented the essence of life. And I ask you, if there was a sign put up above your head, what would your sign say? Now, take up your cross. At least 4 times during his earthly ministry, Jesus urged his disciples with a curious expression, take up your cross and follow me. Well, I ask you, what did he mean? What did Jesus mean? I was in a large house a while back, and this guy had a life-size cross leaning in the corner of his office, and it was as tall as his ceiling. It was huge. He liked his cross. His cross didn't have training wheels because I looked. This man took Jesus literally. Take up your cross and follow me. What was Jesus really asking his disciples to do? Jesus used this common expression at least 4 times during his ministry. The first one I'll call, you are worthy. So early on, we were told he told his disciples that if they didn't take up their cross and accompany him, they were not worthy to serve with him. So what was their cross? What was their cross? Did they have to literally carry a cross? That would be ridiculous. All Jesus' followers dragging those things around behind him. So what were they carrying? Were they carrying a sign that said something? It wasn't a sign, a physical sign. But we'll figure out in a few minutes what their cross was. So what was their cross? These first group were early in his ministry, were they worthy? And Matthew 10:38 says, and he that taketh not his cross and followeth after me is not worthy of me. The word follow me should really be translated accompany me. And I like that better. Or walk on the same road in the same direction with me. I mean, would you rather just follow Jesus around, or would you rather accompany him? Would you rather walk side by side on the same road with him in the same direction? Well, that's what he was saying. See, you're all called and you're all worthy. So that's the first one. The second time it was used, I'll call it make it a habit. And this next time he reminded his disciples to take up their crosses and follow him was when Peter grabbed Jesus and challenged him in front of the other apostles for saying that he would be tortured and die. And Jesus confronted them all. Luke 9:23 said, and he said unto them all, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. Now, why use this take up your cross and follow me expression again? But this time he added the word daily. Now, what does he mean? What does he mean by that? It has to mean something. So Peter had blown it. He called Jesus out on when Jesus said that he was going to die, and he was going to be tortured. Peter didn't like to hear that. He was a tough guy. Nobody's going to touch Jesus when I'm around. Get it? You see? And so Jesus said, you got to follow me daily. Follow me daily. So you got to make it a habit now. Peter, you too. Now the third one is, what's holding you back? Handle what's holding you back. Handle what's holding you back. And this is about the midpoint of his ministry. And this is when Jesus was gaining quite a following. He was very popular. And it was very popular to follow Jesus at this point. And one rich young man told him that he really wanted to follow him. And Jesus understood his heart, and he lovingly told the wealthy young man what it meant to be a true disciple. Jesus used this cross expression for a third time, Mark 10:21. Then Jesus, beholding him, loved him, and said unto him, one thing thou lackest, go thy way, sell whatever thou hast, and give to the poor. And thou shalt have treasure in heaven. And come, take up the cross and follow me. Okay? Well, the young man sort of slinked away at that point. And see, I think we're beginning to see that our cross is made of more of heart than it is of wood. Okay? What drives your life? What motivates you to get out of bed each day? Is it money? Is it your business? Is it your workout? Is it your friends? Is it what other people say? Is it the politics? Is it the media? What is that thing that holds you back from giving the very best of you? Well, for this young man, it was his business. It was his money. He knew he could never fully commit to following Jesus. Now, there's people who can commit and have a lot of money. I'm not saying money's bad. I'm just saying this young man could not balance both of them, and Jesus knew that. You see, what is it? Is there anything that keeps you back from giving the best of you? Now, the final one, the fourth time he did this, was near the end of his ministry. I'll call it live your gift. And he once again challenged his disciples with the same request. Luke 14:27. And whosoever doth not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. These guys and girls had been with him through thick and thin, through storms and healings, through menace and miracles. They'd seen crazy stuff. And now he is once again asking these people who had been with him for almost a full year. They'd left their businesses. They'd left their families. Though Jesus took them back to visit, because most of them are from Galilee, so they didn't just leave, but they served with him hard for a year. Look at what they did with Jesus. You know a lot of the stories. Now he's asking them to take up their crosses and follow him, or they can't be his disciples anymore. How would you like to hear that? You know, when you'd already been with somebody for a year. You see, is he changing the rules of the game? Or do they really have more to learn? Well, I'd say they probably have more to learn here. 4 times Jesus told his disciples to take up their crosses and follow him. What does Jesus mean when he says take up your cross? Is it a physical act? What does he mean when he says follow me? Was he training his disciples to be followers, or was he training them to be disciples? Why would the simple act of carrying one personal cross make someone a disciple? Just think about that. What is it about carrying your cross? What does that really mean? I think we're getting the point, but there's more. What does it really mean to carry your cross? We know it's not a physical cross, and we know they didn't even crucify people on crosses like this. Okay? The word cross is that Greek word stauros, and it just means a post. I just said that earlier, okay? They didn't carry posts around with a sign, you see? So what did they carry in their hearts? Well, did that guy with the big cross in his office have it right? Did the guy in the toga with the training wheel cross get it? Do millions of preachers who teach that our cross is our burdens, your cross is your burden, do they really know do they really know what Jesus was asking? In fact, try to find a preacher that doesn't teach that your cross is carrying the weight of your own burdens. Now answer this. Just think about training somebody to take over your ministry after you save the world, after you rise from the dead. Would Jesus want his most faithful disciples bringing all their problems along with them? No, that's not even logical. Why would Jesus expect us to lug around a literal cross with or without wheels? Why would he want to make a show of our burdens just to be his follower? It doesn't make sense. It's got to be deeper. It must mean something more than we have probably been taught. What was the disciples' cross? Like I alluded to earlier, every crucified criminal had a sign over his or her head stating in one sentence what had become of their life. Now just think with me for a second. Like staring at a car crash or wondering what happened, all the people of Israel were used to seeing people crucified on reusable posts. It was a common sight. It was a smelly sight. Yet they had to walk or ride their donkeys. Their kids are with them. They're walking past these things. It was a Roman intimidation device. It was terror. And they were also used to, when they walked past these guys, glancing up and looking at the short epitaph, the caption, the inscription that summarized, why that person crashed and burned. Something happened to that life, didn't it? You see, maybe Jesus just flipped the idea of the one-sentence summation of an entire life from the negative to the positive. I think that's what he did. Just maybe Jesus would be able to get his apostles and all us disciples to figure out our essence, to discover and display everything that we have that makes us special. You see, what makes you unique? What is your personal gift? What is your calling? Well, folks, that's what your cross is. That's what your stake is. Jesus just used, now in the Old Testament, it was never, that term to pick up your cross and follow me was never used. It was never used until the Romans started crucifying people all over the place. So whether that phrase came from Rome, from some other country, we don't know, but we know Jesus used it at least 4 times in the Gospels. Take up your cross and accompany me. We know it doesn't mean a big cross with wheels on the bottom. You see, we know it doesn't mean a post with a sign stuck to it. It can't. It has to be something of the heart. It has to be something staked in your heart. A post is a stake. It's also a word, it's a piece of lumber. It's something you could stake. It's something staked in your life. It's a part of you. You see, could our gift boil down and be... Could your gift be boiled down into one sentence? Could that be the cross that Jesus was talking about? I'd be willing to bet that it is. Again, do you think that the cross was made of wood, or was it an analogy of our life, our gift, our callings, our purpose? Do you think some of us might still have an unlived life somewhere inside of us? Do you think you have an unlived life, a part of life that still needs to come out and live? That's your cross. What stops us from these things? What keeps us from wanting to shine? What keeps us from shining? You see, do you think there are distractions in life that keep us from our truth? That keep us from living our truth? Sure. There's a lot of things. I mean, it could be personality. We could be quick to anger. Another person could maybe never get angry and needs to. You see, everybody's a little different. Doesn't mean you're carrying your burdens, carrying your weaknesses. Use your strength. 4 times Jesus used the phrase, take up your cross and accompany me. 4 times. And he told them they were called. He told them they were worthy. He required them to make living their gift a habit. He taught them to make their daily habit out of living their calling. He wanted them to live their gift out loud. See, our cross is not made of wood. Our cross to bear is not our problems. Our cross, the sign that everyone we meet notices, is able, the sign that we have, the cross that we bear, everyone we meet should be able to see. You should live it on your sleeve. We might say that today, right? Live your life on your sleeve. People should be able to see who we really are, not what somebody told us we are. You see, that's our cross. Now, the word cross, of course, isn't the word cross in the Greek, but you get it. What would your sign say? We've been talking about your cross or your sign, but what would your sign say? Well, way back in the 70s, people used to ask, hey man, what's your sign? You ever been asked that? What's your sign? you know, and with your platform shoes and bell-bottom pants, you know, and they would take great pride in being born on a certain day of the month. And they loved to tell people how some ancient sage somewhere wrote all this stuff down, you know, and told them who they are. And they try to get you to understand them through what somebody else said they were. You know, I don't really understand it, man, but it is true. I really am like that. Well, Aries people, they would tell you they're strong. Taurus would tell you that they're right. Gemini informs you they must be understood. Cancer tells you they're needed. Leo roars, I'm loved. Virgo lets you know that they're worth it. Libra knows that they are appreciated. Scorpio says, I'm safe. Sagittarius informs you they live free. Aquarius speaks about being one of a kind, and Pisces would say, I'm good enough. So one time someone asked me my sign, and I remember telling him, I'm a Texan. They usually get mad when you say something like that. You see? One time I told them that I was the son of God when they asked me my sign. They just walked away. You know, it's just funny. You know, people get so into this. What somebody else said you're supposed to be, now they believe that's who they are. See, now all zodiac aside, what would you write on your own sign? You know, don't be shy. Who are you really? What is the essence of your gift? Now, I'm not talking about what your dad told you. I'm not talking about what your mom told you. You know, I'm not talking about what your teacher told you in 4th grade on the first day of school. When my teacher told me, oh no, not another redhead. You know, and she hated me the whole year. For some reason she didn't like redheads. I thought everybody liked redheads. I do. You know, I'm not anymore, but I am on the inside. You know, what do people tell you about you? I mean, everybody I know, I could put in one sentence what I think of them. Now, I don't mean that. I mean it in a good way, okay? The Apostle Peter was told that he fought for God's people, didn't he? The apostles and brothers, James and John, are called by Jesus sons of thunder. These wild men lived out loud with very little filter. You know anybody like that? You see, the Apostle Judas never fully evolved into who he was called to be. His sign still says, Judas of Iscariot, a thief and a traitor. You see, I asked my wife what her sign would say, and she quickly said, my sign would say I'm a good friend and a good listener. And if you know Josephine, she pretty much nailed it. She pretty much nailed it. You know, she didn't even throw in, and I'm amazed that she didn't even throw in that she was Italian, which is almost a miracle for her not to throw that into something like that. Can I get an amen? Okay. See, I think of some of you, you know, I think of some of you, put your names with these people. I'm as faithful as a day is long. I am mighty and I love to serve. I fight for God's people and I have no filters. I'm a miracle baby. I get things done. I'm an encourager. I'm a teacher. I bring health to others. I'm a peacekeeper. I bring out the best in others. I'm a friend. See, in one sentence, who are you really? That's your cross. That's your sign. That's your flag. Not the negatives that the world told you, not the negative self-talk that you tell yourself, not the job that you identify so closely with, not the state you're from or the culture you're raised in. That's not your cross. Who are you in one sentence or less? The people that Jesus and his disciples saw day after day all had one short sentence on their sign that summarized and defined who they decided to be. You know, what they made of their life. It told everyone who they were. I'm a murderer. I'm a riotous slave. I'm a traitor. I'm a robber. I'm a pirate. Arrgh. You know, I've been a lifelong criminal. You know, I started an insurrection. Want to join? You know, that's what these people had become. That's what they had allowed their lives to become. Jesus' sign said something different. It said he was the King of the Jews. See, if I had a sign, it would be a sign in 3 different languages. See, and the sign that they made of Jesus, was in 3 different languages. And, it was in the language of the Rome, it was in Latin, and then it was in Greek, and it was in Hebrew. And if you really figure this out, if you really studied this out, you realize they tore down the sign a couple of times because people hated it. They hated it. And so it was in Hebrew. It was in Latin, it was in Greek, and it was in Aramaic or Hebrew. And so if the person was important enough, the sign might be written in 3 languages, like I just said. And that's what they did in Jesus' case. You see, they would use Latin so the Roman soldiers and political families could read it. And they would use Greek so the world-traveling business people that were in Israel could read it. And they put it in Aramaic or Hebrew so the locals could read it. Jesus was important enough. Jesus' sign, penned by the recently washed hands of Pilate, the Roman leader in Israel at that time, was as telling as it was accurate. It said, Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Judeans. To us, Pilate nailed it. To the Romans, that term smacked traitorous. That wasn't a compliment from the Romans. That term, that he was the King of the Judeans, meant that he was going against Rome and that he was worthy of death. To the rebellious Judeans, to those leaders, it screamed of blasphemy! Blasphemy! You're worthy of death! Look how they wanted to have him killed. You see, but to the believers, to the people who knew Jesus, it was true. He was and he is the King of the Judeans. In fact, he's the King of Kings. Jesus had spent his whole life getting ready to save the world. He knew who he was in God's eyes and he believed it. He knew he would end up as King of the Jews and Savior of the world. Now, each of us has one sentence that should describe our lives. That one sentence is your cross. Who are you, folks? What have you done with your life? Now, if you screwed things up like I have done at times, you can still change. If you've made mistakes that some people think are irredeemable, there is always something you can do to make your life better. Millions have changed. I'm one of those millions. You see, if you've been a criminal, then start giving back to society instead of taking. If you've been a liar, then train yourself to speak the truth in love. If you get swept up into the popular fads of what are thought of as righteous riots, or if you're prouder of your culture than you are of God's word, then you might have some rethinking to do. Some people totally identify with their culture. I'm Texan, or whatever. You know what I'm talking about. You see? It doesn't matter what shade you are. It doesn't matter what size you are. It doesn't matter what state you came from. You're a son of God with all power, a daughter of God with all power. That's who you are. You see, if you're pushed to hate people who won't join in and carry your flag, I feel sorry for you. We see that happen in society today. If you feel you have to wear a certain garment to fit in, what's up with that? You see? Or if you feel all judgy and you want everybody else to wear the same piece of garment that you're wearing, I don't agree with that either. You see? It's a manipulation. If you're pushed to be angry when you don't feel angry, that's not your cross, folks. Maybe that person should be angry, but doesn't mean you have to be, right? Maybe you should be angry and not quiet like that person. Maybe you feel pushed to be passive or subservient when you know you should act. Well, that's not right either. Our family never says anything. Well, that could be BS. Maybe you need to speak up sometime. Maybe you need to go to the courthouse. I don't know, but don't carry somebody else's sign. That's all I'm saying. Don't do it because it's popular. Do it because it's your calling, because it's your cross, because it's who you are. Any of these things can be changed to fit with the true you. The real you is is your cross. It's your sign. The only flag you should carry is that. Look, every country's politicians and media are masters at manipulating others to carry their flags. That's why they got into politics in the first place. That's why people got into being in the media. They want to manipulate people into doing what they really want to do. People become teachers and professors for the same reason. You see, they hold master's degree in double-crossing people. We all see it. The Bible says to let your light shine, Matthew 5:16. You're the only one who should let your light shine. What's your light? That's your sign. It says, let the peace of God rule, Colossians 3:15. You are the one to let your peace reign in your hearts. That's your sign. Philippians 4:8 says, finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, if there be any praise, think on these things. Now that's some pretty good advice from a man who once hunted down Christians and murdered them. You think Paul changed? If he could change, you can change. You think he was popular amongst the Judeans when he switched sides? He was hated. They tried to kill him. You think the Christians first trusted him when he switched? No. No. You see, if you've allowed others to manipulate you into carrying their flag, then start flying on your own wings. Fly your own flag. Put up your own sign. Who are you? Only allow the true essence of you to be nailed above your head for all to see. Who are you? Well, that's your cross, your post, your stake. You know, that should be your purpose on earth. Whatever you are should be described in your calling. You know, it should be able to be written in one sentence or less. Who are you? Try to write that down today or tonight or sometime. Who are you in one sentence or less? Not what other people say. Who are you? Who really are you? Now, if your whole life somebody told you you're a mess up, well, that's not true. That's not who you are. That's not the real essence of who you are. You're amazing, folks. There are two usages of the word cross in the New Testament. One was made of wood, and the other was made of commitment. One was wood, one was heart. If someone else summed up your life into one single sentence, what would it say? This is the cross Jesus taught his disciples to pick up and to carry alongside him on the path of life. Your cross, your sign, your flag is the true you summarized into one statement. Folks, you are flat out amazing. What could be written about you in one sentence? What is your sign, your flag, your essence? That is your cross, my people. You know, that's your flag. You see, never go with somebody else's. You see, whoever you are, has it been thrust upon you, or did you allow it to creep up into your life and change it like that rich kid? That wasn't who he was really designed to be, a follower of Christ. But he just couldn't do it because the life encumbered him too much. What's encumbering you? Is it bad habits? Well, stop it. Get some good habits. You see, what sign will you allow yourself to carry? You do you. Be yourself. Help people see the real you. The real you is your cross to bear, folks. The real you is your cross. Bring the real you to the table. Wear it on your sleeve. What does your sign say about you? Well, we're going to never be double-crossed when we live out our true calling. We'll never be double-crossed when we live out our true calling. And folks, that is the cross that Christ asked you to bear. God bless you all.